Mane fa na se ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de o se dem yopo.
On the utilization of the District Assembly Common Fund to MMDs, I was here when some technocrats came to my office and thanked me that I should thank His Excellency the President for the watertight guidelines that were issued, and said, Honorable, your guidelines have reduced corruption in the MMDs by 70%. We see the money and we can't chop it. This is what the resetting agenda is for. If you don't understand in economics, the DACF administrator will tell you sometimes reset, and that behind every reset there's austerity. So if these austerity measures are there and we are all sweating under air condition, this reset. To ensure that funds follow functions, the ministry facilitated the transfer of all the 4 quarters of the District Assembly Common Fund for 2025. First quarter was paid, second quarter was paid, third quarter was paid, and fourth quarter was paid. We are in the first quarter 2025, and we are working to release the first quarter 2025. This is why 2026. This is why the former administrator of the District Assembly Common Fund was voicing out her frustration that the MPP as a government did not take decentralization serious. They were not, the finance ministers, the 2 finance ministers were not releasing the money. And I can testify. I was in parliament on 3 occasions. Whenever Ofori was to bring a budget to parliament, I, as a member of the leadership of the parliament at that time, I would go to him without releasing the money. We are the people's representatives. Without releasing the money to the district assemblies, we are not going to sit for you to present a budget. We gave you a budget. You have to show us the performance of that budget before you come with new budget. It happened not once, not twice, not thrice, on many occasions. And brothers and sisters, join me to thank the President of His Excellency, the President of the Republic, and the distinguished Minister for Finance. For the 4 quarters, I have never even granted a radio discussion. There was even a time when I told the Minister for Finance, my brother, hold on, let me see how the grounds is, how the money is being utilized, the compliance criteria with the guidelines before you send this one. What has changed? Where from the money? For the 14 months that we've been in parliament, not even a single loan has come for approval. We've not taken a loan, we've not approved any loan, but the constitutional indication of allocation of 252, 5%, where is President Mama getting this money? And what has changed? Reset means when you block all the loopholes and all the leakages and prioritize well, you can do the releases as and when the time comes. And that is what we are all seeing. So, in the first quarter, an amount of 987 million Ghana cedis was released to the administrator of this Assembly Common Fund. Per the law, 80% of that was to be sent to the district assemblies. And out of that, 790 million was sent to the MMDEs as 80% of the money. Then for the second quarter, 1.8 billion was sent, and out of that 1.4 billion was disbursed at 80% of the MMDEs. The third quarter, 1.46 billion was sent, and out of that 1.18 billion was sent at the 80%. On the last quarter, 1.9 billion was sent as the total grant figure. Out of that, 1.592 billion was sent directly to the MMDEs at the 80%. And this was to be used for the development projects in each MMDE per the approved guidelines as follows. At least every district assembly was to build at least 2 chief compounds, at least 3 classroom blocks, at least 25% of the money for 24-hour economy market, at least 10% for furniture, at least 10% for boreholes, at least 10% for sanitation, and at least at most 5% for recurrent expenditure. My brothers and sisters, these were the compliance indicators. District assemblies have so many sources of money. Yours is to economic viability is one of the criteria for creation of districts. Yours is to create an improvised means of generating money locally. So the common fund is not your only fund. You have other funds. And that's why we said you can use, out of this, you can use only 5%. The rest is for developmental infrastructure. Let the people fill the central government. Out of this, and then 10 boreholes. So the achievables, when you go to the achievables, all the 261 metropolitan municipal and district assemblies were to drill at least 10 boreholes each. Multiply 10 boreholes by 261. Within 1 year alone, you'll be running up to 2,610 boreholes.
So how much in all was released last year? How much was released?
In all, yes, I will come to those things after the presentation. Thank you very much, my good brother. So, and the president did not want to abandon legacy projects. All we need to know previously was that successive governments came and tried to demonize their predecessors. President Mahama didn't want to do that. So he said we must allocate 20% of the 80% that is going to the district assemblies to be used for the completion of all and abandoned projects that were initiated by his predecessors. And that is what we call legacy projects. As per their 2025 action plans, the budget estimate projected to deliver a total of 400, and we wanted the 261 metropolitan municipal and district assemblies to drill at least 10 boreholes each. So, and build at least 2 chief compounds. So 2 chief compounds and 261 would have been 522. But you agree with me, in Greater Accra, not all the 27 metropolitan municipal and district assemblies need chief compounds. Whereas the rural districts need chief compounds, Ladadekotopon is already being given La General Hospital. Kolebu have Kolebu, Tema has Tema General Hospital. So not all of them are building the 2 chief compounds, but some are even building 4 chief compounds. However, in the annual action plan that was provided to us, out of the 522, 494 are being built and at various stages of completion. Then the school compounds, the school blocks, 761 classroom blocks are at various stages of completion. The boreholes, about 4,029 boreholes are being drilled. Then on the legacy project, 2,755 legacy projects which are currently at various stages of completion are all ongoing. Suffice to note that 8 years, 2017 to 2024, total DACF releases per previous administration to the MMDAs from 2017 to 2024, the total releases was 17 billion. 2017 to 12, the actual releases, actual disbursement for the 2017 to 2024 was 17 billion. 1 year alone, President Mahama disbursed 6.3 billion. Disbursed how much? 6.3 billion. 1 year. And this was for last year, 2025. From 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, the total disbursement was 17 billion. For 2025 alone, 6 billion. Compare the two, and you know the better managers of the Ghanaian economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the worst among them was that the assemblies, because they were not functioning, the previous government under the MPP administration could not assess the year 2023. They did it up to 2022. 2023, they couldn't do the assessment. The law says that the practice is that at the end of the year, you have to assess how the assemblies did their work in the previous year. Those that pass, you motivate them. Those that fail, you build their capacity. They did it up to 2023. Adequate resources for the MMDAs to perform. And this hampered their ability to fully discharge their statutory functions, thus affecting the service delivery and infrastructure development at the local level across the whole country. This was highly and fervently voiced out by the former administrator for local governance, the District Assembly Common Fund, my revered sister, Honorable Na Toshi, when she said, as a party, the new patriotic party under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, deputized by Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, did not take decentralization serious. What were the indicators? The District Assembly Common Fund was not fully forthcoming. It was not regular. It was very erratic as the drought in Dubai. Less than 50% of the DACF was transferred directly to the MMDAs. Consistently, for almost 7 years, the guidelines for the operationalization of District Assembly Common Fund were not coming. They only issued guidelines for the first year, 2017, and stopped. And this was a breach of the Local Governance Act 936, which says the minister shall, in consultation with the Minister for Finance, issue guidelines on the utilization of the District Assembly Common Fund. And this is in section 126 of Act 936. And this is what controls the internal control system that checks how the judicious use of the money should be ensured. So if you're a government, you don't issue guidelines, the money will be used anyhow. It is instructive to note that the statutory 5% of the DACF meant for the disbursement to the MMDAs was also capped. Because the government did not take the decentralization system very serious, he brought a law to Parliament and capped the 5% earmark fund, the 5% constitutional fund, which in Article 252 of the 1992 Constitution says that every government compulsorily you must take 5% of all your total tax revenue to all MMDAs. This 5% was not fully released and it was capped. Portions of the money was capped for other things. And this is what characterized or what confirmed that the MPP did not take decentralization or local governance serious. The fortunate thing that happened was that we had a president who was a district assembly member, an assembly member elected by the group of Bole DA Assembly, and that was President John Dramani Mahama. His first political career was assembly member. So when he became the president, he saw the need to reform the local governance sector. What did he do? The measure of the local government, chieftaincy and religious affairs and sanitation as a tripod restored decentralization and local governance structure to a functional status, and the MMDAs are now capacitated and well-resourced to discharge their development and service delivery functions through the government reset agenda. So what is happening is not just by default or by accident. A practitioner, a key player, ascended to the throne, and he's restoring, resetting what was broken when he was there. The ministry, by its current nomenclature, aims at deepening decentralization, local governance, upholding traditional values, religious coexistence in a clean environment for equitable and balanced development. Indeed, the ministry is charged with the responsibility of coordinating the affairs of local governance sector to achieve a sustainable, equitable, and balanced socio-economic development of a decentralized framework in consonance with Article 35(5) of the 240 Article 240 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, as well as the provision of the Local Governance Act 2016, Act 936, objective underpinning the vision and broad functions of the ministry and the sector are as follows: to ensure political commitment to the implementation of decentralization policies and programs, to strengthen leadership and capacity of all levels of decentralized structures in the country, promote civil society participation and decentralization governance, strengthen the registration of birth and death, safeguard the natural environment, deepen policy formulation, ensure the safety of life, property, and social well-being of all communities. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the ministries, departments, and agencies of the sector are as follows: Department of Birth and Death Registry, Department of Parks and Gardens, Department of Community Development, and the likes. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to ensure effective sector-wide approach to local governance and decentralization and strengthen partnership, I am happy to indicate that the ministry collaborated with the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization, ably led by the distinguished Executive Secretary, Dr. Gamaleho Dufia, and the Institute of Local Governance Studies, the Office of the Administrator of District Assembly Common Fund, the Office of the Head of Local Government Service, the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority, the Social Investment Fund, the Greater Accra Passenger Transport Executive, GAPTI, among others, to execute its mandate. It is important to note that per the mandate of the ministry, it exercises political oversight on all the 16 regional coordinating councils, the RCCs, and all the 261 metropolitan municipal and district assemblies to ensure effective monitoring and evaluation of implementation of policies respectively. Let me now take you through the ministry's planned activities in 2025 fiscal year and the significant achievements made so far. In line with the 2024 manifesto of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President of the Republic of Ghana, the sector medium-term development plan 2022 to 2025, and the other policy statements, the ministry outlined the following activities as part of its work plan for the year 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing that we did was to facilitate the elections of members of Council of State in all the 16 regions. And for your information, this was the fastest, the earliest election of Council of State in the history of the Fourth Republic. The President was sworn in on 7th January 2025. The following month, on the 11th of February, Council of State elections were organized and successfully ended. It has never happened before. Even when a civilian president is taking over from a new party, it would have taken us 4 months, 5 months to do this. We did it in less than 1 month. We facilitated the appointment of metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives and assembly members. Ladies and gentlemen, in the year 2021, when the new patriotic party, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, handed over to himself, it took him 9 months before he was able to appoint his MDCEs. In this year that President Mahama even took over from Nana Addo, NDC taking over from MPP, it took us within 4 months. We appointed all the MDCEs in all the 261 metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. This was the fastest in the history of the Fourth Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, we also appointed the government appointees, the 2,813 government appointees in all the electoral areas in the country. Develop and relay or promulgate the University of Governance and Development Bill 2025 towards the grant of presidential charter. We also, the President has approved. There's executive approval from the promulgation of the University of Governance and Development, UDG, to be established in Medina, have campuses in Kumasi, that's Akumadan and Tamale. The presidential approval has been given. The bill is with the Attorney General, which will be sent to Parliament as soon as Parliament comes into the next meeting. 5. Disburse an additional 315 of the 6 RCCs in the 48 metropolitan municipal and district assemblies. Back on 20 public sensitization exercises and land use and spatial planning, and this was done by the land use and spatial planning. Undertake training for traditional authorities on judicial processes and adjudication of gender-based issues. Then continue with conflict resolution and management, and facilitate the holding of National Prayer Day in the country. The National Thanksgiving and Prayer Day was instituted by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, and this was also done. We promised to reintroduce the National Sanitation Day, and this was also reintroduced and relaunched on September 6, 2025, to implement the various sustainable sanitation and livelihood improvement projects in the country, and review the allowances of the paramount chiefs and queen mothers. Ladies and gentlemen, for over 8 years, the allowances for our paramount chiefs and queen mothers was not increased. His Excellency the President of the Republic, since he recognized and appreciated the role of local government, chieftaincy, and religious affairs, he sought to review the allowances of the paramount chiefs and queen mothers, which had not been done for the last 8 years. Review the quarterly allowances of judicial committees of the houses of chiefs and traditional councils. Our traditional councils and judicial committees, you know, per Article 270 of the 1992 Constitution, we use the National House of Chiefs, the regional houses of chiefs, in the adjudication of customary chieftaincy, conflict, and dispute. But since these chiefs are they inherit their stool by birth or their skin by birth, you need to give them legal training on how these cases should be adjudicated. So we needed to review the allowances that are given to those committees when they sit to adjudicate cases. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to gladly indicate to you that majority of these activities have been successfully undertaken within the period under review, during the stewardship, during man's stewardship, and with the support of man distinguished officers ably led by the Dean of all chief directors in the country, Alhaji Amin Abrahman, with man, you know, we are one of the few ministries who are favored to have the nomenclature of government in the seat of government in our ministry. My deputy is a female. So the following activities have been successfully delivered under these thematic areas after successful completion of the realignment processes to reflect the new mandate. We collaborated with the Electoral Commission to conduct the Council of State election. I've said that. Appointed the 30% of government appointees. I've said that. Coordinated the appointment and confirmation of all the 261 metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executive in the country. I've said that. Conducted an orientation training program for the MMDCEs. We did that. Collaborated with the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Local Governance to be able to do review, establish the Legislative Review Committee to go into the Local Governance Act 936. The act was packed with lightning of speed in 2016. After implementation for 10 years, we've realized that there need to be some review in the Local Governance Act 936, which was passed in 2016. So there's a Legislative Review Committee which was established to work on that. Pursuant to Section 126 of the Local Governance Act 2016 Act 936, the ministry issued guidelines up to 2022, and they couldn't do it in 2023. So and because of that, all the donor partners who were supporting Ghana's decentralization said, if you can't help yourself, we will not help you. So they were all withdrawing. Once one of the assembly members became the president, in 2025, President Mama Chow, they did the work in 2024. And I'm happy to announce to you that in 2025, we were able to reset the decentralization concept of the district assemblies in 2024. And in the assessment, after the 261 method was characterized by a dysfunctioning local governance system, these are the records. And we did not assess them alone. We did the assessment with the KfW, Bank of Germany, and the Swiss State of Economic Affairs, SECO. the Switzerland ambassador and the German ambassador, together with the Interministerial Coordinating Committee, the Ministry of Local Government, the head of service, the Institute of Local Government Studies, with a combined team, did the assessment, and it was digital. So even in my own region, out of the 12 districts, only 5 passed. In Northern region, where my chief director comes from, out of the 16 districts, only 8 passed. Most assemblies failed than those that passed. And this is not the assessment of the John Mahama's MMDCEs. This assessment was the previous year. The last batch of Akufo-Addo's MMDCEs were assessed, and 143 of them failed, 118 of them passed. We conducted, and after conducting that, an amount of 1.2 billion was projected to be disbursed to the 118, together with the 143 who failed. When you fail, we give you money for remedials, and when you pass, we give you money for development. So those that pass, the 180, each of them is being given in addition to common fund. Common fund is separate. Each district is getting 9 million Ghana cedis, 10 million Ghana cedis, some 11 million Ghana cedis, depending on your score. If you are able to pass 35 over 100, you get at least 7.5 to 8 million. Some 9 million, some 10 million, some 11 million. This is going to augment your IGF and your compulsory share of the DACF. So Mahama is sending a lot of resources to the grassroots. Every district, your destiny is in your hands. And that is why we have the chiefs on the table, the pastors on the table, and the government officials, the assembly members on the table. We give you the money that you deserve. What you want, do it. We give you guidelines. If you still have a priority that is not in the guideline, you write to the Minister for Local Government. You say we should build cheap compounds. But in Tema, we have a general hospital. Our problem is sanitation. We don't build cheap compounds. Sanitation and cheap compounds are both health related or hygiene project. When you bring it and justify it, we waive it for you. Approve. Go ahead. But if you don't bring request for the waiver and you use the money for a different item, you are breaking the internal control system. The auditors will run after you. So, directly, an amount of 800 million out of the 1.2 billion is being sent to the MMDs in 2020. In this year, well, we assessed them last year 5. We assessed them for the 2024 performance. Those that pass are benefiting 800 million Ghana cedis. This bonus. So if your DCE failed, he has caused the district a loss of about 7 to 9 million Ghana cedis. And I know very soon some of them are going to pick from that they are going to contest. If you DCE you failed, can you contest for parliamentary position? So those records, those who failed, they should hold up. We'll publish the records. If you go and take your nomination form, it will show your score. And these current MMDCs, in order to prolong your political career, make sure you pass. And what were the questions? How many assembly meetings did you organize last year? Were you able to organize the mandatory 4? Yes, then we pass you. Did you give notice to the assembly member before the meeting? Yes, we pass you. Did you take minutes during the meeting? Yes, we pass you. Were you able to answer all your audit queries? Yes, we pass you. Once you see it, this is a district assembly preschool. Once you see it, this is a district assembly water closet. This is they brought AESL and brought 2 architects they have suggested. So the designs is because there's no projector here. We would have brought the designs in the coming days. The government minister, communication minister will organize a presser where all the designs are going to be what? Uploaded, and all of you will see them. And they will be given to you. So if you are a beneficiary of the DPAT money and you have started awarding contract that you are building cheap compound for to be pre-financed, what we do? His Excellency the President cast forth for the building or construction of the first 24-hour market, which is part of the government flagship program. If you are one of the MDCEs seated here, the major government policy that brought us to power was 24-hour economy. So don't sit down and thinking that Accra is the only place that's going to deliver it. You must deliver your 24-hour economy policy in your district. And that is why the 24-hour economy market is being built. So don't go and sit down and say, me, I don't care. If you don't care, somebody who cares will come and complete it. So make sure you prioritize it. As a ministry, my responsibility is to make sure that whatever President Mahama promised and the good people voted for him will be implemented. Therefore, His Excellency the President cast forth for the commencement of the flagship 24-hour modern market in Doma, Inkru, Tamale, and Bimila. It includes modern stores, shops, storage, warehousing units, cold storage, women's.
Okay, so were you making payment to Zoom Lion Ghana for these services?
In fact, since I assumed office, no payment has been made. Previous payments, I cannot speak to that. But since I assumed office, they are here. I have not made any payment to Zoom Lion Ghana Limited.
This is 2024 audit. So you said you cannot speak to that. You were doing very well before this question. You were answering all the questions from 2024. So why are you saying that you cannot speak to that? Because
in fact, Mr. Chair, I didn't say I can't speak to that. As at that time, as far as I'm aware, those monies were paid from Accra. It wasn't paid from the district, as now His Excellency has given the power to us.
Yes, I understand that, but we're not given any indication at all whether or not money that was allocated to you, part of it has been paid, has been given to Zoom Lion to offset whatever agreement you have with them.
Not that I'm aware of.
So this question you answered, was it in relation to the non-supply of the three refuse containers or the damage of the containers?
Damage, non-supply, together.
All of them?
Yes, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, Zoom Lion is here, but let me read the paragraph of the auditor's report. Paragraph 747. We were unable to quantify the value of equipment not delivered and the services not rendered in the agreement, as the deliverables were not individually priced. Meaning that whatever money we paid to Zoom Lion, we didn't get any value for it because, one, the containers were not supplied, two, the damaged truck was not repaired, and the damaged containers were also not repaired. So Zoom Lion is saying, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, maybe you may want them to respond to that.
Yes,
Thank you.
I would ask Zoom Lion to respond to it because they are here. But before that, have you seen a contract between your district and Zoom Lion?
The previous one, yes, but as we speak.
What was the date on that contract?
Off-head, it will be very difficult to mention.
It will be very difficult.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
But there was something like that before I came to
I'm
the office.
sorry?
I said, yes, there was something like that before I came to the office. Off-head date.
Yes, there was a contract.
I may be wrong.
Nobody signs those contracts in Accra. You, the districts, you sign the contracts, don't you?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And as soon as you sign the contract, you don't know where the contract is. Now, let me ask Zoom Lion to comment.
Honorable Chair, by way of introduction, my name is Dr. Francis Dente, Chief Internal Auditor, Jospon Group.
I'm Dr. Stephen Yeboah. I'm the Group Head for Internal Control, Jospon Group. Honorable Chair, I'm Frederick Manti, the Regional Coordinator, Western of.
Honorable Chair, respectfully, Zoom Lion has a contract with the Assembly, with effective date being the 3rd of January 2024 for 5 years. So this contract ends on the 2nd day of January 2028. 2029, I'm sorry. Now, for 5 years. From reading from the report of the auditors, we believe that this contract was not the basis for the audit. The basis for the audit was, and given that the contract spells out all the benchmarks, once a wrong contract has been used to conduct the audit, we do not believe that the findings are right. In fact, when you look at the current...
Lion, respectfully, did you say that the auditors used a wrong contract to come out with this report?
Yes, the contract...
Why do you say so, please?
Because the contract that they used, Honorable Chair, respectfully, is that of 2019, effective date 2nd day of January 2019, which expired on the 1st day of January 2024. And subsequent to that, a new contract was signed between Zoom Lion and the Assembly, dated with effective date being 3rd of January 2024. So with respect to the audit of 2024, which respectfully was done in 2025, the contract that was supposed to have been used was the 2024 contract.
Did you find out from them whether they used the 2019 contracts or the contract dated January 2024? Auditors, you are here. Respectfully, can you clarify whether you used the expired contract as Zoom Lion is claiming, or the contract dated January, did you say January 3rd, 2024?
January 3rd, 2024, respectfully.
Honorable Chair, the contract that was handed over to the auditors at the time was the basis for the audit. Now, if you quite remember, this issue came up during our previous sittings, and as part of the contract, they were supposed to provide these materials and equipments for managing the waste as far as the districts are concerned. Now, the chairman advised at the time that in order for them to do their work and for auditors not to be citing some of these equipments and all those things as not being provided and they are damaged and all that, they should concentrate on couching out a contract that will focus on providing waste management services in their various districts. So when we did the 2024 audit, the contract that was existing was a 2019 contract that they signed. Now, I'm sure that after that audit, a new contract was signed. But that contract, though, when you look at it, I mean, I can send you a copy for you to look at it. The contract was actually signed towards the end of the year 2024. It was around end of November that the Assembly started signing those contracts.
Yes,
so
it was dated 3rd January 2024.
Yeah, so when you look at the preamble, the preamble states the fact that the contract, is in effect from January 2024, but it was actually signed by the various assemblies getting to the end of the year, November 2024.
So say, clearly, even using the previous contracts, these infractions were cited. You failed to deliver on the previous contracts. So you cannot conveniently sit here and say that they used the wrong contracts. They are saying that this transpired somewhere in 2023, and then they had to carry it forward. And so even in the previous contracts, you failed to deliver on the terms of the contract. That is what the auditors are saying. And that is why it was my colleagues who were in the previous Public Accounts Committee, the ranking is here, Honorable Akwesi Kunedu is here. These things came up in the previous sitting, and it was brought to your attention. So you cannot say that first and foremost their report is based on a wrong contract, so it doesn't hold. These were infractions that you were cited on when that previous contract existed. That is what the auditors just told us.
Honorable Chair, respectfully, if we heard the auditor right, this thing was debated in the, I think 2 years ago when we had the Public Accounts Committee, and it was settled that Zoom Lion's work is the service delivery and not supply of...
Well, but what the auditors cited you for are what is in the contract, unless you are telling us the auditors based their reports on something different. But what they are saying right here is that they cited these infractions based on the contract that was given to them. And in that contract, auditors, can you please repeat it? Maybe once you repeat it, as the accounts will say, yes. So wait, as you hit it hard, as you repeat it, and we all get a better understanding of what you want to carry across. Thank you.
Yeah, so Honorable Chair, as I indicated earlier, we audited based on the contract that was existing at the time. And in that contract, they were supposed to provide these items for efficient waste management services in the various districts. And so that was a basis. Later on, they came out with a new contract, but that contract was signed at the end of the year, 2024. And so we cannot just say that the basis of our audit is wrong. I mean, this has been an issue that have been reoccurring even in our past audits. And to help them and to help all of us, they asked them to focus on the waste management services, which now in the new contract, they have tried to do that so that the issue about these equipment not being supplied and damaged will not come up again.
So, Mr. Zumla, you can't pick and choose. The auditors are saying they provided in their reports that moving forward, focus on just the waste management and leave out the provisions of the bins and the trucks. And based on that, in the new contract, you don't find it in there, I suppose.
Honorable Chair, that's what...
No, I'm asking. So in the new contract, do you still provide bins and trucks for refuse collections, please?
We use the containers and trucks as our tools of trade, as always.
So it is still in there?
We use them to do the work, but...
No, I'm talking about the provision of these things to the assembly. Is it in the new contract?
No, it's not in the new contract.
So clearly you have listened to what the auditors, the recommendations the auditors gave, and that's reflected in your new contract. So then you cannot say that they are, yes, this, the, whatever, 744, the infractions that you've been cited for, one is based on a wrong contract. You cannot in any way state that here, because they said that this was the contract that was given to them prior to you signing on the new contract. The new contract was signed somewhere in November, but then in the agreement, you stated that it should take effect from January. So as at the time they were having this, the audit, it was that contract. And these are issues that have come up in previous years that they have pointed it out to you. So respectfully, you cannot say that they based their report on the wrong agreement. That we will not take here.
Honorable Chair, respectfully, contract has a beginning date and an end date.
Try to make progress.
Okay.
This one, this one, non-supply of 4 refuse containers, whether it's tools for the service or supply to the assembly or belongs to the assembly, they are saying that you did not supply. 3 containers were damaged, you did not replace them. 1 truck was broken down, you didn't service it. That's the problem you're having now. So it's not about you, whatever. So that's what we need to explain so that we'll make progress. Please.
Honorable Chair, we have, as we speak, we have about 150 containers that we are molding. As at the last audit hearing here, we supplied 300 containers nationwide. As we speak, we are molding 150. So any shortage anywhere that we find, we believe we will be able to supply and do the work. But it still stands to reason that the containers and then the trucks still remain the property of Zoom Lion as our tools for trade. And wherever we are challenged, and the challenge may happen anyway, because these are trucks, these are equipment, they can break down anytime. Whenever it breaks down, as an effective deliverer of the service, we make sure we deploy from wherever we can to ensure the work gets done. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Doc, it also stands to reason that when you were going for the contract, looking at the magnitude of work in each district, you tell the district chief executive and the management that for your district, we are bringing you 5 trucks, 10 skips. So if you don't supply that number, you cannot come and sit here to tell us that it stands to reason that those machines and those skips are not for the assembly, but they are your work tools. Why then would you put those into your contract? Because that is the effectiveness of how you'll be able to perform. So if you did not produce those numbers of your equipment that you told them that you were bringing, you cannot come and sit here to tell us that it stands to reason that those are your work tools and therefore not the property of the assembly. We are not here telling you they are the property of the assembly first and foremost. We are saying that in the contract, you told the assembly that you provide them with 5 skips. You did not. Some got broken down, you did not replace them. You told them you bring them 3 trucks, they said you did not. That is what we are speaking to. But if you tell us that it stands to reason that we should know that those are not the properties of the assembly but your work tools, that cannot be acceptable.
Respectfully, thank you. I am not saying that that's what you have to accept. I'm just laying it bare, our responsibility, which is delivery of the service using the tools that we think are appropriate. That is what the contract says. And that is exactly what we have been doing. And indeed, we have always made sure we deliver the service. Where even if the tools are not available, we deploy from other sources to make sure the service is delivered, because that is the foundation of the contract, delivery of the service. And that's what we have always done and will continue to do. However, as I have said already, we'll continue to ensure we have adequate resources, including the containers and the trucks. 150 containers are now being molded. We will supply to wherever there are gaps to ensure that we don't have to probably even deploy from other locations. Thank you, Honorable.
Auditors come in and then Honorable Edema.
Mr. Chairman, the difficulty that we have is this. We did not go to Zoom Lion to conduct any audits there. They have never responded to issues that we raised. We audited an assembly which was a party to that contract. They gave us the contract, we looked at it, we raised issues, they responded, they did not say that the contract was not existent and all that. So why would somebody come from outside and tell us that what we did was wrong? We cannot accept that. The auditee himself is here. They responded to all the issues. We had entrance, exit meeting with them. We gave them 30 days to respond to our observations. The final management letter, they responded to them. And a report was generated and sent to Parliament. You were not a party to that. Why would you come and rubbish what we have done? It's untenable, Mr. Chairman, to say the least. Thank you.
Respectfully, Honorable Chair, I'm here to protect my company, to defend my company. I'm here to defend my company.
Respectfully, Doctor.
Respectfully.
We are here to do what?
No, I'm saying.
I'm saying we here. What are we here to do?
Yeah.
We are also here to protect the public purse, so that if there's anything that is hindering that protection, we call it out and come up with reforms that will help us protect the public purse. And that is why we are here. From the initial stage, I told you, you cannot state that the auditors based their audits on the wrong contract. That is a no-go area. That's a non-starter, because that cannot be correct. We have pointed out the reasons why we raised those questions to you. And I think we have all come to an agreement that you ought to do your part to discharge your mandate. And government also will have to do its part to make sure we protect the public purse, at the same time pay for what we consume or pay for the services that you render to government. I think it should end there. But the auditors have a right to state that your initial comments that they base their audits on a wrong premise or a wrong agreement. I mean, they have the right to do that, because clearly they did not, the audit was not with you. The audit was with an assembly in which you provide services to. So whether you shrug...
I'm not PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal le Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.